Right now, people from across the world are waking up from an artificial life created by an elite group who wants power, allegiance, and control. This awakened few are also a part of an elite group, a group of people that will stand fast for truth, not scared of the consequences, but scared of the consequences of being silent. What are the consequences of being silent about the biggest heist in history? Stolen freedom. The freedom to worship any god you want, or no god at all. The freedom of speech. The freedom of press. And the freedom to assemble. Now there are movements that claim to be for freedom, and claim to be anti-New World Order, anti-big bankers, Freemasons, and even anti-Illuminati. These movements, while claiming to have the truth, are still a part of that which we are fighting against. They are being used to keep your attention on these, while the real threats to our freedom are being established in the background. An example of the propaganda of the New World Order is a movie called Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist was a film that teaches a little bit of truth and at the same time secretly pushing another agenda. The Zeitgeist movie consists of 3 parts. The first time I saw the movie on YouTube, I only saw part 2 and 3, which tells you the real story about the Federal Reserve and that 9/11 was an inside job. I had a big interest in these 2 subjects, but I was very disappointed after finding out the truth about the agenda of Zeitgeist. By examining this video in detail, not only will we find out the true intentions of Zeitgeist, but also the true intentions of the New World Order, and find out who the real threat to our freedoms are. To find out the truth, we need to start at the beginning of Zeitgeist. In part 1, Peter is teaching how Christianity is being borrowed from another religion, and that Jesus represents a sun.
Probably the most obvious of all the astrological symbolism around Jesus regards the 12 disciples. They are simply the 12 constellations of the zodiac, which Jesus, being the sun, travels about with.
He also teaches that Jesus was the age of Pisces, and that Jesus will be pushed aside at the age of Aquarius.
In order to understand this, we need to be familiar with a phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes. The ancient Egyptians, along with cultures long before them, recognized that approximately every 2150 years the sunrise on the morning of the spring equinox would occur in a different sign of the zodiac. This has to do with a slow angular wobble that the Earth maintains as it rotates on its axis. It is called a precession because the constellations go backwards rather than through the normal yearly cycle. The amount of time it takes for the precession to go through all 12 signs is roughly 25,765 years. This is also called the Great Year. And ancient societies were very aware of this, and they referred to each 2150-year period as an age. From 4300 BC to 2150 BC, it was the age of Taurus, the bull. From 2150 BC to 1 AD, it was the age of Aries, the ram. And from 1 AD to 2150 AD, it is the age of Pisces, the age we are still in to this day. And in and around 2150, we will enter the new age, the age of Aquarius.
So where did he get this philosophy from? The answer is in the transcripts to the movie, which he posted on his website. Some of the names that Peter appealed to: Albert Churchward, who's a Freemason; a New Ager, Acheria S., Maxwell Tice, who is also a New Ager, Gerald Macy, Edward Carpenter, Manly P. Hall, who was a Freemason, Higgins Godfrey, who was a Druid and associated with Helena Blavatsky, and Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. The names I have just mentioned are all a part of a huge network, a network that is linked like a spider's web. We may never find out everyone that's in this network, but we have enough information to find out who's at the center of the hierarchy. But I'm not going to tell you who he is. I'm going to let his puppets tell you. As I looked at these names, I realized that most of these people were Freemasons and New Agers. And as we go further in the documentary, you will begin to notice that these groups are against the Bible, except for one story in the Bible.
Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, 'You must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die.'" "You will not surely die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food, and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened.
What do secret societies in the New Age teach? That it was Lucifer who illuminated or opened the eyes of Adam and Eve and made them wise and made them gods. One prominent person in the Zeitgeist list is Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky stands out as a fountainhead of modern occult thought and was the originator or the popularizer of many of the ideas and terms which have a century later been established within the New Age movement. The Theosophical Society, which she co-founded, has been the major advocate of occult philosophy in the West, and the single most important avenue of Eastern teachings to the West. In 1890, Madame Blavatsky handed over her teachings to another prominent New Ager by the name of Annie Besant. In 1902, Annie Besant established the International Order of Co-Freemasonry in England, and over the next few years established lodges in many parts of the British Empire. Both Annie Besant and Helena Blavatsky's theosophical writings were translated and published in Germany. An 1892 periodical, Lotus Blossom, featured Blavatsky's writings and was the first publication to sport the theosophical swastika on the cover. Another woman influenced by Madame Blavatsky was Alice A. Bailey, writer and lecturer of Neo-Theosophy. She was born in England in 1880 as Alice Petrov Bailey. She moved to America in 1907, where she spent the rest of her life. She was a high priestess and prophetess of the New Age movement. She was a prolific author on occultism and founded the International Esoteric Movement. Sir John Sinclair, a 32-degree Freemason, gives a commentary on the seminal influence on Alice A. Bailey, which he says underlines the conscious growth movement in the 20th century. Now, what do these women and a Chariot S, which was Peter's main source for the film, have in common? They all teach of a coming age, a new age. New Age and Masonry are waiting for a new era in which to build a perfect society like Atlantis.
Man's quest to control his own destiny and to worship a God that would give him freedom to define his own values and moral parameters was the central desire in his pursuit to bring all other humanity under his control and establish a new global order. Those throughout history who sought to implement this plan would stop at nothing, be it through deception or brute force, to realize their dream. A dream to rebuild the mythical city of Atlantis described by Plato 2,500 years ago and believed by many to have existed in the antediluvian world. And along with this, to re-establish the principles that guided that society. The question will no doubt be asked: who, what, and if anything, is involved in the pursuit of this apparently far-fetched occult agenda today? If such a mystical concept as a perfect Atlantean society is in fact believed in and being implemented, then who are the players and what powers, human or otherwise, might these players have at their disposal? Indeed, can history, the Bible, and the unfolding of present-day events really confirm the veracity of such an agenda? There are those who believe that this is not only possible, but that there is overwhelming evidence to establish it as fact.
"400 years ago, Bacon, like many of his contemporaries, believed that Atlantis was America itself."
He was trying to lay a foundation for what could be accomplished in the New World. Bacon was the head of Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism.
He had a huge influence through being the chief of the Rosicrucian fraternity at the time. He had a huge influence on the birth of modern Freemasonry. And many of those Rosicrucians actually went into Freemasonry at that time to lift it up to its new level. And Freemasonry has a major influence on the founding of America.
The president talks about how we want to bring democracy to all these countries of the world. Well, why doesn't he want to bring a republic to these countries? We were a republic. We were never a democracy. It is only the people from the mystery religions and the secret societies who are pushing this idea of world democracy, or this combination of enlightened nations, enlightened democracies to rule the world. As incredible as it may seem, there are really people who believe that. They're working full-time to accomplish that goal. And until you understand that they are the primary force behind the wars of this last century and World War III, which we are entering into today, unless they understand that the whole idea is to create this reestablishment of what they believe is lost Atlantis.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
How was Alice A. Bailey preparing men's minds and hearts? She founded a publishing company by the name of Lucifer Trust, and then changed it to Lucis Trust. She also started a group called World Goodwill, an official non-government organization within the United Nations. The stated aim of this group is to cooperate in the preparation for the reappearance of the Christ. Alice A. Bailey claims that this Christ speaks to her. Now this Christ has many names: the Tibetan, the Maitreya, Dwayal Kul, Inman Mahdi, and here is the Christ speaking to Alice Bailey. Who's helping Alice Bailey in the appearance of the Christ? How are they going to prepare the world for this coming Christ? First, they need to teach the world, either openly or secretly, on the New Age teachings and occultism. Second, they need to unite government and all religions into one governing order. Third, there needs to be a population decrease. And as they decrease the population, they will also get rid of the old system of Christianity. How will they achieve this? By getting rid of the Bible-believing Christian. Now I'm going to show you one of the ways they will educate. Propaganda. Could it be that Zeitgeist is pushing the agenda of Blavatsky and Bailey, who has a direct link to the United Nations? We have already seen his link to these occult women, and to my amazement, he also has ties to the United Nations. Peter Joseph appealed to an organization by the name of UNESCO. What is UNESCO? As you can see, birds of a feather flock together. Now there is a school that educates openly, unlike Zeitgeist, which conceals its true intentions. That is the Robert Mueller School. The first Robert Mueller School started in Arlington, Texas in 1979 to implement Mueller's World Core curriculum. Who is Robert Mueller? Robert Mueller is a former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and the Chancellor of the United Nations University for Peace and the Chairperson of the Peace Party 2000. What is the World Core curriculum? It's being used to steer our children towards global citizenship, Earth-centered beliefs, socialist values, and a collective mindset, which is becoming a requirement for the 21st century workforce. In other words, the World Core curriculum will remove from the minds of men, women, and children their individualism. Now, if we go to the UN website, we can get a glimpse of what to expect in the future. These are the schools that are under the World Core curriculum. The Shaman Institute, Living Essence, Seed, Magical Blend, Association for Humanistic Psychology, Open Mind Academy, Institute of Nautic Science, and the list goes on and on and on. So tell me, Robert Mueller, what is the philosophy of your schools? The underlying philosophy upon which the Robert Mueller School is based will be found in the teachings set forth in the books of Alice A. Bailey. The school is now certified as a United Nations associated school, providing education for international cooperation and peace. see now why the New Age hates Christianity? It's because the Bible teaches to be separate. Right now, you're probably asking yourself, isn't there Christian groups within the United Nations? And the answer is yes. My religion, right or wrong, and my nation, right or wrong, must be abandoned forever in the planetary age. The form of the church of the New Age will remain the same. Thus, churchgoers are less likely to notice that there has been a change in the message. He says, the new spirituality does not reject the earlier patterns of the great universal religions. Priest and church will not disappear. They will not be forced out of existence in the New Age. They will be absorbed into existence of the New Age. Right now, I'm going to show you how the Christian churches have already been absorbed into the New Age movement without anyone knowing it. To see who these daughters are, and to see who the problem children are, we need to go to the mother. How was the Catholic Church going to gather her children? Now before I show you if the ecumenical movement has worked on the churches, I first want to show you the churches that believed that the Pope was the Antichrist. Many others believe the same thing. Wycliffe, Tyndale, Luther, Calvin, Cranmer, the translators of the King James Bible, and the men that published the Westminster Baptist Confession of Faith. These men, among countless others, all saw the office of the papacy as the Antichrist. Do you remember what priest J. Cornell said? The final objective of ecumenism, as Catholics conceive it, is unity in faith worship and the acknowledgement of supreme spiritual authority of the Bishop of Rome. Now, to find out if the ecumenical movement is working, we need to go back into time. Presbyterians, Congregationalists, and Methodists. These churches are negotiating reunification with the Anglican Church, whilst the latter is grabbing the hand of Rome. In 1975, the Protestants and the Roman Catholics issued the First Common Catechism. Now, what does this catechism say? In 1977, the Joint Anglican Roman Catholic Commission issued the following statement. It seems appropriate that in any future union, a universal primacy, such as has been described, should be held by the Roman See. Heibe Eisen und Altseifen. These bones of contention, and they decided that Pope is no longer Antichrist. In 1989, the Anglican Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Robert Runcie, went to Rome and urged Christians to consider the Pope's primacy as spiritual leader. And now, you have the signing of the Declaration of Canterbury, and now, the Pope is the head of these churches. Now I'm curious, what does the Anglican Church look like, now that it's back with its mother? I had to find out. To find out, I searched St. Paul's Cathedral, and this is what I found. Here's a picture of St. Paul's, and what does it say about the cathedral? Its impressive dome was inspired by St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Now, while St. Paul's makes an image to the beast, Rome is in the background, trying to gather the rest of her daughters. And the Pope tells the world, for unity, all churches must accept papal authority. And do the churches accept it? And Rome's mission was a success. Ecumenism gives a wound to Protestantism. And a new era of Protestant preachers from Rome emerge. This is Billy Graham, a well-known evangelical Protestant, who was also a 32-degree Freemason. He is just another pawn pushing the agenda of Rome. Billy Graham, on receiving an honorable doctorate from the Roman Catholic Belmont College, Billy Graham said, "The gospel that founded this college is the same gospel which I preach." The Religious News Service reported on January 13th, 1981, that Pope John Paul II was closeted for almost 2 hours with the Reverend Billy Graham, the world's best known Protestant evangelist. The Pope used Billy Graham to get his foot in the door to the United States, and it worked. It was through Billy Graham's intervention that Reagan set up an ambassador to the Vatican. President Reagan was not the only president to have a relationship with Rome and to break the Constitution of the United States. There was one president who had the strength and courage to stand up against Rome. His name was John F. Kennedy.
For a crime guide in our newsroom, and there has been an attempt, as perhaps you know now, on the life of President Kennedy. He was wounded in an automobile driving from Dallas Airport into downtown Dallas, along with Governor Connolly and Texas. They've been taken to Parkland Hospital there, where their condition is as yet unknown. We have not been told their condition at Dallas. In the downtown hotel room, a group had been gathered to hear President Kennedy when awaiting his arrival. Let's switch down there now, where Eddie Barker of KRLD is on the air.
Now, as it happened, the tragedy in Dallas. At precisely 12:30 p.m., the presidential limo turns into Dealey Plaza.
to ensure Protestant preachers that he would not obey the Pope. In 2001, George Bush came from Texas to Washington to assure a group of Catholic bishops that he would. Rome is gathering up her children, and now it was time to gather up all the religions of the world. Pontiff told assembled Buddhist monks, Zoroastrian priests, Catholic cardinals, Hindu gurus, American Indian shamans, Jewish rabbis, and the ecumenical clergy that all must join in condemning the Christian fundamentalists who abuse speech and whose efforts are converting others and incite hatred and violence. All present were in one accord on two key points. 1. Pope John Paul II was endorsed by consensus as the planet's chief spiritual guide and overseer. 2. Religious fundamentalists that refuse to go along with the global ecumenical movement are to be silenced. They must be denounced as dangerous extremists full of hate. Right now, you might be endorsing the ecumenical movement and not even know it. But if you willingly know that you are against this New World Order movement, you will be labeled as a dangerous extremist and maybe even be called a terrorist. So what is this ecumenical movement? Let's ask the World Council of Churches. The word ecumenical is derived from the Greek term oikumene, which may be translated as the whole inhabited world. Now there is one obstacle that is preventing the ecumenical movement from uniting the whole inhabited world. Simply stated, Adler argued that we will not be able to attain world peace until we attain cultural unity. But Adler argues that there is only one obstacle to unity: Christianity. Now, when they talk about Christianity, they're not talking about Christians as a whole. They are talking about a specific group. To find out who this specific group is, let's ask the Freemasons themselves. And according to Gary, the ancient mystery religions has passed down to Kabbalism, Gnosticism, Knights Templars, all the way to the Rosicrucians, and then to the Freemasons. And the Freemasons control Marxism, American European secret political societies, international banking elite, and the World Council of Churches. Kyung from the World Council of Churches declared, "To witness about Jesus Christ to another person is in reality an act of violence." When reminded that Jesus said in John 14:6 that he is the only way, Kyung said Jesus was mistaken. So according to the ecumenical movers, the religious fundamentalists that must be silenced are the Bible-believing Christians who witness about Jesus. Now there are people who claim to be Bible-believing Christians and Christians that witness about Jesus, but are still a part of this movement. Right now, I'm going to show you how Rome is going to determine if you are with this new world, new age, ecumenical movement, or if you're a dangerous heretic that must be silenced.
That all people have the right to work, not to work, at the same time, so that they can be together. And one of the things that's happening to us is that we're getting on these very different schedules, and we're having a very hard time figuring out how to come together. And what the Sabbath does is it creates this situation in which there's just a structured period in which we can come together.
So is this the first step? And maybe that is the answer to my next question. Is going to say, what's the first step if someone's watching and they say, you know what, I need to do that?
Basically, the first step is to do it yourself. You bring it into your life and try to get your family to do it with you. But one of the things I argue in the book is one of the ideas, the political ideas sort of embedded in the Sabbath, is the idea that as a society we have the right to take control of our time and say maybe as a democratic society we want to decide to bring back some rules about what can and cannot be done one day a week. And we might want to start thinking about ways to encourage people not to work on that day.
No, very good advice.
All our lives, we have been taught that the Lord's day, the Sabbath, the day we must worship God, the day we must attend church, the day we must rest, and a day that must be kept holy, was to be on Sunday. It was not until now that I began to see the truth, not by outside sources, but by the very one that is pushing for Sunday observance, and the one that changed times and laws. And as a part of this crusade to save Sunday, Pope John Paul II writes an apostolic letter calling to keep Sunday holy. He also writes in that letter, "Only in the 4th century did the civil law of the Roman Empire recognize the weekly reoccurrence, determining that on the day of the sun, the judges, the people of the cities, and the various trade corporations would not work." Doesn't this sound remarkably like the Freemason ran CNN?
The Sabbath is two things to me. One, it's this incredible idea. It's really one of the great ideas in human history. It's transformed the world. It's affected the way we've lived for thousands of years. The Sabbath is not just that all people have the right not to work, which, by the way, was a radical and new idea when it was first conceived and written down in the Fourth Commandment. It's not only that. It's that all people have the right to work, not to work, at the same time, so that they can be together. And
the Pope goes further in saying that Christians will naturally strive to ensure that civil legislation respects their duty to keep Sunday holy. Yes, the Pope is right when he says that Christians will strive for Sunday legislation, because it is the people that are getting brainwashed to think that we even need Sunday legislation.
So is this the first step? And maybe that is the answer to my next question. I was going to say, what's the first step if someone's watching and they say, you know what, I need to do that?
Basically, the first step is to do it yourself. You bring it into your life and try to get your family to do it with you. But one of the things I argue in the book is one of the ideas, the political ideas sort of embedded in the Sabbath, is the idea that as a society we have the right to take control of our time and say maybe as a democratic society we want to decide to bring back some rules about what can and cannot be done one day a week. And we might want to start thinking about ways to encourage people not to work on that day.
Ah, very good advice.
Wait a minute. When did she say that this law was first written?
All people have the right not to work, which, by the way, was a radical and new idea when it was first conceived and written down in the Fourth Commandment.
This commandment is very important because it reveals if you are a Bible-believing Christian or a follower of man. Now let's see what the Fourth Commandment says.
Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
Let's break this commandment down. The Sabbath is the Lord's day. And what day is the Sabbath? It is the seventh day, which is Saturday. And how do we remember the Sabbath and keep it holy? We should rest and do no work. By keeping these commandments, not only does it exalt God, but Jesus also. Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." Jesus also said, "But in vain they do worship me, teaching for the doctrines, the commandments of men." What I want to look at now is to see if the commandments of the Roman Catholic Church is of God's or of man. Now, one way to find out if the Roman Catholic Church is teaching the doctrines and commandments of man or the commandments of God is just to ask Rome itself. One way of doing that is reading the Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine. And if we go to the question and answer page, it'll ask and answer our questions for us. Question: what is the third commandment? Answer: the third commandment is, remember that thou keep holy the Sabbath day. Question: which is the Sabbath day? Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question: why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer: we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. Question: why did the Catholic Church substitute Sunday for Saturday? Answer: the Church substituted Sunday for Saturday because Christ rose from the dead on a Sunday, and
the Holy Ghost descended upon the apostles on a Sunday. Question: by what authority did the Catholic Church substitute Sunday for Saturday? Answer: the Church substituted Sunday for Saturday by the plenitude of that divine power which Jesus Christ bestowed upon her.
The Pope admits that the Sabbath was changed from Saturday to Sunday, therefore making it his day, even though there is no scripture to do so. If the churches agree that there are no scriptures commanding us to change the Sabbath to Sunday, and agree that the Catholic Church changed it, then why does the whole world keep Sunday observance in the light of this truth? Sunday is therefore to this day the acknowledged offspring of the Catholic Church, as spouse of the Holy Ghost, without a word of remonstrance from the Protestant world. Reason and common sense demand the acceptance of one or the other of these alternatives, either Protestantism and the keeping holy of Saturday, or Catholicity and the keeping holy of Sunday. Compromise is impossible. The observance of Sunday by the Protestants is a homage they pay, in spite of themselves, to the authority of the Catholic Church. There's only one Protestant church that doesn't pay homage to Rome, a group that believes in the Bible and the Bible alone, a church that keeps the Ten Commandment law and remembers and keeps the commandment that says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Once again, I'm not going to tell you who they are. I'm going to let Rome tell you who they are. The Catholic Church changed the observance of the Sabbath to Sunday. The Protestants claim the Bible to be the only guide of faith has no warrant for observing Sunday. In this matter, the Seventh-day Adventist is the only consistent Protestant. Those who follow the Bible as their guide, the Israelites and the Seventh-day Adventists, have the exclusive weight of evidence on their side, whilst the biblical Protestants has not a word in self-defense for the substitution of Sunday for Saturday.
So who do they declare as their confirmed opponent? What does the Roman Catholic Church say? Who's the only consistent Protestant, and who's the only one that opposes them on this issue? The Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, can you understand why the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a rebuke not only to Catholicism but also to Protestantism? Yes or no? It must be. And so they will be reviled and called sects by both Catholicism and Protestantism. So basically, if this is so, I have been preaching it here. This is the position of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, irrespective of what others are doing, and Catholicism agrees heartily. In fact, says the editor, there can be no other choice.
Who are the Jesuits? The Jesuits were founded August 15th, 1534, by the Spaniard Ignatius Loyola and sanctioned by Pope Paul III on September 27th, 1540. Loyola wanted the order to be the champions of Catholic unity, which could only be assured through a subjective submission to Christ's vicar.
I now, in the presence of a mighty God and you, my ghostly Father, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, founded by St. Ignatius Loyola, do by the womb of the Virgin and the matrix of God and the rod of Jesus Christ, declare and swear that His Holiness the Pope is Christ's Vice-Regent and is the true and only head of the Catholic or Universal Church throughout the earth. Therefore, to the utmost of my power, I shall and will defend this doctrine and His Holiness right and custom against all usurpers of the heretical or Protestant authority, and all adherents in regards that they be usurped and heretical opposing the Sacred Mother, Church of Rome. I do further promise and declare that notwithstanding I am dispensed with to assume any religion heretical, for the propagating of the Mother Church's interest. I do further promise and declare that I will have no opinion or will of my own, or any mental reservation whatsoever, even as a corpse, but will unhesitatingly obey each and every command that I may receive from my superiors in the militia of the Pope and of Jesus Christ. I furthermore promise and declare that I will wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants, and liberals, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will hang, burn, waste, boil, and flay, and strangle and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs of the wombs of their women, and crush their infant heads against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their execrable race.